we get really driven by getting to that landmark or that milestone, and then when you get there, it's like, well, life doesn't actually change.
Yeah.
And so you kind of still you're
confronting.
Yeah. Once that initial kind of elation of achieving the milestone has worn off, it's like, oh well, I thought I was. I'll tell you a good example for me.
Sure.
I think in my mind, actually, I was having a conversation with a friend of ours, John Marsh.
Yeah, legend.
Who doesn't, great guy, doesn't really know much about jiu-jitsu. And we were talking about it. And he's like, oh, when do you think you're going to get your black belt? And we we're talking about that. And he was like, wow. And I can't remember how it came up, but I was explaining to him how, like, even once I get to black belt, I'd still get my ass kicked by like a world champion blue belt.
Sure.
And he was
I don't think that's true, but sure.
Oh, mate. Yeah, okay. But
there's levels.
Yeah, like if you're highly competitive and training at that level, right, you're going to be a real handful no matter where someone else is at. And he was like, he was a bit perplexed by that, but he's and he was thinking like, but once you're a black belt, shouldn't that just mean that you are like kicking everyone's ass? And I'm like, that's the illusion of it. That's what you kind of think. And I was thinking about relevant to that when we're talking about this podcast. I was at training on Monday night, training with a lot of white belts, and I had tough rolls.
Yeah.
We were doing a bunch of live drilling, live sparring, and the guys were putting it on me.
Joe Rush wire.
Yeah, right. Thank God Joey Rush wasn't there. But I was like, these guys are bringing the heat. Young Joey at blue and purple belt probably was under the illusion that he would never be touched by a white belt or a blue belt because I'm above that.
Yeah.
But the case is, it's like, no, it's always hard.
Yes.
Like it never gets to the point where you're like, McDojo, like use the force shit.
Just Tai Chi. Psh.
Yeah. So, but in the beginning, I think when you're a white belt, you're thinking, man, when I get to blue belt, like none of these guys are going to be with me anymore.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to be on another trajectory.
Yeah, I'm on another level.
And very quickly go back to your first training session, and they're coming at you even harder because they want to show the coach, I'm a blue belt.
I can beat that blue belt.
Yeah. And you're like, holy shit. Like you're almost worse than you were the week before when you were at the end of your white belt.
And there is a crisis of conscience. And I've seen this so many times. And this is the thing that you get from being in the game for a while is you see someone either kind of swell into that blue belt. You see someone get their blue belt and they boss up. And you're like, whoa, this person's like, they're letting you know I'm the blue belt. And then some people shrink. People are like, God, there's so much expected of me now. Like I'm actually there's some expectation for me to hold a certain level. Whereas when you're a white belt, even if you've got a couple of stripes, you're a white belt. You're kind of free in that way. But definitely, and this is the thing, my misconception about getting my black belt was, not that I thought it was going to have magical powers, but I just thought I'm going to have a certain level of understanding by the time I'm a black belt. And I didn't. Like, I had accumulated a certain amount of knowledge, but there were brown belts who tap me and I'd be like, God. And then I just think there's a hole in my knowledge. And because you're a black belt, you have to show up. You can't not show up. If you're a white belt and you have a bad day, no one cares. You're a white belt. Your life's going to suck a lot for a long time until you get up. But then when you're a blue belt, it's coupled with that idea of, well, you're not a white belt anymore. You got to put your big person gi on, and you actually have to bring a degree of level, and people don't like this.
It's got to, in a way, like what you just said about how you felt about when you got your black, it's got to be the equivalent situation for them.
Yes.
Like they're feeling, it's their black belt, and they're like, oh my God, like how I should be doing better.
Yes. But the truth is this, guys, and this is the attainment versus process, and this is the thing I wanted to open with, is that, you will see it, and it's more of a calm, I would say, Joey, this is where Joey and I actually, this is a lesson I take from Joe Worthington. The few lessons.
I'm putting up 2022 mentorship program. One of my greatest disciples right here. Please apply.
Well, if you would like to train with his trainer that gets him strong, feel free to just message me. No, I think the thing is this, guys, Joe is very process oriented. He's a day in, day out. What are we doing today? What are the actionables? Let's do those things. I understand that those things are important, but they're boring. It's so boring. It's like, I want to talk exciting things. I want to talk about jiu-jitsu robots. I want to talk about the future. I feel like Kanye West. I got synesthesia. I'm hearing colors. I I can see sounds. Like I am so far in the future, you guys don't understand. Joe's like, bro, calm down.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about that.
Have you tied your shoelaces this morning?
Have we done
Yes
the
or no?
emails? You know, and
Yeah, I tied my left to my right.
yeah, it's the way. This is how it looks in the future, all right? And the truth is, when it comes to getting better, it's funny when you can see people doing things in their day-to-day lives which are very ordered and organized, but when they come to jiu-jitsu, it's just chaos.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's my free time. I don't want to think. I don't want to be organized. But if you can be process-oriented, which is when I show up, I do my warm-up, I bring my water bottle, I do all these things, even though that seems boring, that builds to success. So if you actually want to be good at this thing, you get focused on the little things in the day in and day out in the process. And just know that winning and losing are, either side of the coin, the yin and the yang, of a process of development. And that losing to a white belt, even though you're a blue belt, that might suck. You got to go, that white belt is on one and I'm having a bad day. And then on another day, you might be kicking ass and you're a blue belt and you tap a purple belt. Well, maybe they were having a bad day, you were having a good day. There's so many variables there that you need to be able to step back from the emotion of it and I'm a blue belt and the ego and the attainment and go, what is this process? And understand that blue belt is just a step within the process of getting good at jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to conceptualize it in my mind, but there's when you start jiu-jitsu, I've spoken about this before, there's a short-term aspect to a short-term perspective that you have. And that is, James and I started at the same time, 2 months ago, so we're probably going to get our first stripe soon. And then,
together,
and then that's happening. And, but so-and-so was already here, so they've got 3 stripes.
They're a bit better.
And then someone gets their blue belt and you're like, why didn't I? Or you get yours and they're like, why not? And as a coach, and I don't coach a lot of jiu-jitsu, but I've had a lot of these conversations where people are like, I haven't been shown up. I need to get, so-and-so got their stripe. I need to get my stripe or their blue belt. And it's like you're looking at every single session and every minute of the day and how do I stay on par with these people? You get to my level, 13, 14 years of jiu-jitsu. I've seen people go from white belt to brown belt in the same amount of time that I've had my brown belt.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I just don't give a I'm like, wow, how about that?
Good for you.
Because I could, if I'm thinking about it, I'm like, well, I almost quit a few times. And so you're as you get further down the path, that whole micro observation of the timeline is just obliterated. And all of a sudden it just becomes about you and your journey.
That's right.
And I think that at that blue belt time, for most people, not for the people who have been 10 years of white belt, but for most people it's pretty early on in the piece for them, they're still looking at that micro timeline.
Yes.
And so you're expecting rapid progressive growth and you're still comparing yourself to your training partners day in and day out.
Yeah.
And I think kind of what you're getting at is don't worry about that. You have to take this long-term view, which is essentially looking at the process and applying yourself to that. I'm just going to show up, keep training, do my best, be consistent. That's the goal.